Well, hello, Power Partners, and welcome to our informational playground. This is Starstyle. Be the star you are. We're coming to the airwaves under the auspices of Be the Star You Are charity, and we are on the Voice America Network, the Empowerment Channel. I am your host, Cynthia Brian, and I'm very happy to have you with us today. Just remember, in order to create your dreams, we want you to know that you have already arrived because you are the writer, producer, director, and star of your own life. In today's show, we're going to be tackling a few different subjects. In segment one, we'll find out how AI can help us perhaps write letters or get the answers that we need or even prepare for an interview. In segment two, does that shot of caffeine result in shorter reaction times and better performances? Is drinking coffee beneficial to your health? We will discuss how coffee does improve cognitive abilities and how energy drinks are not recommended, even though they do have caffeine. And in segment three, since the devastation of the wildfires throughout Los Angeles, many people ask how they can protect their homes from fires. Now, 84% of wildfires in America are the result of human activities. And there are some things you can do to harden your home in advance and harden your garden to help your household survive a disaster, and we're going to go over those. The miracle moment for today is brought to you by the charity that brings you this show, Be the Star You Are. Visit the website at bethestaryouare.org. And it is one from Anne Frank. Whoever is happy will make others happy too. And that is such a truism. Well, when we're talking about AI, we want to always be cautious, of course. But what we're learning is that AI can really help us outsmart any of maybe our own human systems. Like if you need advice, for example, let's say you want to find out how to save more money on your telephone bill, or maybe you want to find out where the nearest hospital is that would be good for orthopedic work. You could probably beat just the standard web search by doing something with AI. You can drill down further, for example, and get your piece of advice, and then find out like how much different things would cost, and even where they are. So when you get like an AI bot, you can suggest questions, and maybe you haven't even thought of the questions, and you might even ask the bot to have a free-flowing conversation with you and see what the curiosity will see where it leads you. Now, of course, when you're dealing with AI, you want to always make sure to check on the accuracy of the information you're getting, because there are lots of instances where AI leads you down the wrong road. I know I was just reading an instance the other day where AI was helping doctors with their reports, when you go in for a doctor appointment. And unfortunately, when the AI transcribed what the recording said, they transcribed them really wrong. And some of the AI was actually had even dangerous things in it. So you got to double check for sure. But here are a few ways that people are using AI just in everyday everyday ways. So let's say you have to draft a letter, and maybe you have to draft a letter to a company's customer service center because something isn't working. You could ask AI to get you started. And, this can be a first draft, and then you can massage it to make sure that what you're actually trying to say is great. I was looking at a sample letter that AI wrote, And this was created from Chat GPT, and it drafted this letter in literally a fraction of a second. And so the prompt was from AI. It was, from Chat GPT. It said, "What can I help you with?" And what it was written is, "Draft a letter to the airline for compensation for my lost suitcase and its contents." And the result, in literally just a second, said, "Subject, request for compensation for lost suitcase and contents. Dear customer service team, I hope this message finds you well. I am writing to formally request compensation for my suitcase that was lost during my recent travel with," and then you would insert the airline's name, "on flight number," and you'd insert the flight number, "from," put the departure city, "to arrival city on such and such date. Now, upon arrival at my city, I discovered that my suitcase did not arrive. I promptly reported the issue to your baggage service desk and was given a reference number." And then you list the reference number. "Despite my efforts to track the suitcase, I have yet," and then briefly list significant items and their approximate value if possible. "The total estimated value of the contents of my suitcase," and then put a total estimated value. "Given the circumstances, I believe I am entitled to compensation for both the lost suitcase and its contents. I have attached copies of all relevant documents, including my boarding pass, baggage claim ticket, and any correspondence related to this matter. I appreciate your prompt attention to this issue and look forward to your response regarding the next steps in the compensation process. Thank you for your assistance. Sincerely," and then you put your name. So that letter would have taken me probably a good half an hour, if not an hour, to write and massage and get, exactly the right wording. But with that one prompt, "Draft a letter to the airline for compensation for my lost suitcase and its contents," Chat GPT, with AI, of course, did this in just a fraction of a second. So you can see in on the positive side of AI of how powerful it is and how helpful it can be. And of course, we know AI has a lot of downsides and a lot of critics, but this is, an instance where it was really, really helpful. Now, another thing it can do is, if you have a job interview coming up, you could ask the AI bot to go through a written mock interview exercise with you. Or if you need to question like a confusing charge on your credit card statement, you could ask it to formulate some talking points for that call that you're going to make to customer service. And that could go for anything. I mean, I just recently got a credit card bill for which I had paid the amount in full, and it was sent, but it was holidays, and obviously mail was slow, so it arrived one day later than the end of the cycle, and it had a very large penalty on it. And so I called customer service, and it was very quick when they were able to rectify it and to waive the fee because I'm never late on my payments, and they could see that from the records. But it really helped to have kind of a few talking points so that you sound professional and pleasant and always, always nice. You don't want to go in with your boxing gloves on. Another way that AI bots can summarize some lengthy documents that you upload. Do you ever get, well, I think we all get these when we sign up for something, it says that you have to check that you read it. And it's like 20 pages of legalese. I don't think anybody ever reads that stuff. So maybe what a good way to use that information would be to copy it and just say, "Would you please summarize this information in doing it in like an eighth grade manner?" Because that's what people always say is that most people like to read it like an eighth grade um, level. And that is to make it really understandable. And when it comes to legal stuff, that's probably better, is if you can make it really simple. So to me, that was a really good use of AI, is to summarize and simplify. Another one is to get better responses, you could give AI a specific task. And you could say something like, I am a teenager living in California, and I am interested in finding a volunteer position where I could use my reading and writing skills. And sometimes if you get that specific, and even can even get, say, what city or state you're in, they can AI will help you discover what you need. Now, just remember again, don't take the results as gospel, because sometimes the information that ChatGPT or AI is going to give you could be inaccurate. It could have been copied from false news or fake news or whatever you want to call it, or something. So you have to verify, and just be really wary of AI when it gives you any legal, medical, or financial advice. And don't ever enter any of your medical, legal, or financial, or any personal information in a chat box where you are asking a question, because you definitely want to be safe about that. But just think about using it, especially for drafting some letters. I think it could be incredibly helpful. Well, you're listening to Cynthia Brian. This is Star Style. Be the star you are. We will be back with more information, and when we come back from break. In the meantime, you can visit us at starstyleproductions.com or starstyleradio.com. We're going to find out about caffeine, the truth about it, and why it is actually good for you. Don't go away. And we're back. So thank you so much for staying with me here on Star Style, Be the Star You Are. I am your host, Cynthia Brian. And in this segment, we're going to be talking about caffeine. Is it good for us? Should we love it? Well, every single morning, my husband will get up about 15 minutes before I do. And he will go and grind the beans. He puts on the kettle, and then we do our cafe per se, which is the plunge coffee. And he likes to make it every day. And it's such a joy. I enjoy it too. And then when I come, I have my coffee and I add my cinnamon. I shave some fresh nutmeg in it. I shave it from the nutmeg bean. Sometimes I'll shave some dark chocolate, and I normally put a little bit of honey and a little bit of cream in it. But if you are a coffee drinker, do you ever wonder if it's good for you? Because I think most of us, and many people around the world, we really love our morning Java. And interestingly, there is coffee's best known component, which is caffeine, is estimated to be the most widely used psychoactive drug in the world, with billions of people consuming it every day. But unlike other addictive substances, it's unregulated. And nobody would even think twice about struggling to function without that cup of Java in the morning. Now, interestingly, from science, scientists believe coffee lovers are really onto something because there's a slew of studies that show that taken the right way, caffeine can improve many things, including your cognitive abilities and your alertness. And what's more, your pursuit of a Java pick me up may bring a host of related health benefits. Now, not all sources of caffeine are viewed equally, but in recent months, its health risks, especially in energy drinks, have been in the spotlight. And we'll talk about energy drinks at the end. But in the UK Labour Party, which now forms the country's government, pledged to ban the sale of energy drinks to children under the age of 16 due to their dangerously high caffeine content. And that does come on the heels of a comprehensive report that was called The Dark Side of Energy Drinks. And that documents cases of people who ended up with severe health issues after consuming them. But that's energy drinks. So what we're going to talk about right now is coffee, because obviously we don't all respond the same way. What's safe for one may not be safe for another. And we can't pick and choose the research that we want, because there's always going to be upsides and downsides. But first of all, let's find out, what is caffeine. It is a natural compound that is found in the seeds, the fruits, the nuts, and the leaves of around 60 species of plants. It has a bitter taste, um, which is an evolutionary quirk, and it is related to its role as being a natural pesticide. Now, the discovery of its richest natural source, which would be coffee. So the natural source is coffee, is said to go back to Ethiopia around AD 850, when a local goat herder noticed his animals were getting jumpy after eating berries from an Arabica plant. And he gave some of the fruits to a local monk who brewed the world's first cup of coffee. I love that story. But we know now that this jumpiness boils down to caffeine's effect on the brain, because it only takes 45 minutes for all the caffeine from one cup of coffee to be absorbed into your circulatory system. And it travels to your brain, it crosses the blood brain barrier. And there, the caffeine binds to and blocks receptors for the neurotransmitter, and this chemical, which builds up as the day goes on and dampens the nerve fiber activity, makes us sleepy and it slows us down. It's called adenosine. Caffeine competes with adenosine for access to the receptor. And so it has that opposite action. It actually makes us feel more energetic, alert, and awake. So it's like we get a shot of focus. So if you've ever had a long drive or you have a deadline, you know that there are some benefits in having that coffee. And research backs up what coffee drinkers always appreciate, that people who downed a shot of caffeine had shorter reaction times, were more alert, more focused, and were cognitively sharp. And the effects were physical too, with better for performance in tests of muscle strength, with endurance and high intensity sprints. Now, there was a recent study of amateur cyclists that found that caffeinated coffee improved performance by an average of 1.7%. And those effects tend to last for around 2 hours, although, of course, it can vary, considerably between people, and can also be influenced by other things like the food that you ate recently. But when we look at these findings, it's little wonder that caffeine's presence in energy drinks in particular is often marketed as a way of focusing attention, improving exam performance, and enhancing athletic prowess. But there are other effects too. So, after people consume caffeine, they tend to report feeling happier. And then there are signs that the substance could even cause a longer term mood boost. There's a study that well, several studies that consistently show that individuals who drink 3 to 4 cups or 3 to 4 shots of caffeinated coffee a day are less likely to experience depression, and they have a lower risk of suicide. Now, the same relationship has not been shown with any decaffeinated coffee. So, in these studies, it suggests that the caffeine is that mood booster. And the results are really robust, which is surprising because you don't think of caffeine as being a real antidepressant. But there's a lot of work of scientists that are showing that drinkers of caffeinated coffee have significantly lower risk of developing Parkinson's disease. And I found this especially interesting, although the reason for this is really unclear. But what the doctors point to is caffeine's known ability to increase levels of the neurotransmitter dopamine in the brain, because dopamine plays a vital role in regulating the movement of the body, and a lack of it has been implicated in both Parkinson's disease and depression. So that's all good news for coffee drinkers. It seems to bring, caffeine seems to bring a host of benefits that aren't necessarily anything to do with its most famous component, caffeine, as well. Because heart specialists are saying that there are heart health benefits, and that wasn't actually considered possible with caffeinated coffee at all. But there were quite a few reports that caffeine sped up your heart rate and gave some people palpitations. So everybody assumed that coffee was bad for you. But then the recent studies, there was a study at the Baker Heart and Diabetes Institute in Melbourne, Australia, and they did this study with 380,000 people in the UK that were tracked for 10 years. So this is, a big study to see if they went on to develop cardiovascular disease. And people who drank 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day generally had a lower risk of developing coronary heart disease, heart failure, or any arrhythmia, or of dying for any reason during that 10-year study period. However, and this was also interesting, decaf drinkers saw by and large equal benefits with the exception of the arrhythmias, suggesting that there is something else in coffee that is responsible for its heart protective effects. And the sweet spot of drinking seems to be about 2 to 3 cups of coffee. Now, I don't know if they mean when they say if they actually mean measuring cups or just like a mug, but it was associated with 25% reduction in heart disease and a reduction in all cause of mortality. So, if caffeine isn't behind this particular upside of consuming coffee, what is? And the answer might lie in coffee's really complex nature. Because prior to roasting, coffee beans are fermented, and that influences the spectrum of biologically active compounds that the final drink will contain. So there are polyphenols, which are chemicals that are by plants to protect themselves against environmental stress, such as predation by insects and extreme temperatures. And these are thought to have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects on the body. Coffee is also high in fiber, which I never knew. And of course, we know that fiber is a beneficial dietary component, and most people don't get enough of it. So we need fiber for a healthy gut microbiome. So maybe that gut microbiome may ultimately behind some of coffee's positive effects on health. And there is a study that is yet to be published, and this study is looking at 30,000 people from many different countries. And they are identifying a specific bacterium called Lawsonebacter, which is found almost exclusively in the guts of people who drink coffee, including decaf. So you basically have 5 times the amount of this microbe if you're a coffee drinker compared to a tea drinker. So we will have to see. It's interesting because the first time, we see a microbe that's so fussy, it eats one type of food and it's a specific food microbe that is associated with coffee. So the more coffee you drink, the more your gut will be dominated by this Lawsonebacter. And I think it's a good thing, at least according to the scientists, because when these bacteria feed on the fibers and polyphenols in coffee, they release chemicals called short chain fatty acids that are known to be anti-inflammatory, and that calms the immune system. So maybe, that is the major health benefit of coffee, because chronic inflammation is thought to be the main driver of heart disease, and coffee consumption has been associated with lower risk of diabetes, obesity, and allergies, which are also thought to be aggravated by inflammation, as well as depression. So virtually everything, even mental health, is probably related to low levels of inflammation of some kind. So it's really important that we have these signals from our immune system saying we don't need to worry about this if we have it under control. And maybe coffee is something that's helping us. And there is obviously some robust evidence that coffee and caffeine can be beneficial. So what is the final thing is like one or between 2 and 3 cups of coffee per day should be considered as part of a healthy diet. So we'll think about that. Now, if you're a tea drinker, that's interesting too, because there are caffeinated teas. And tea has long been considered a very healthy drink, with proponents claiming it boosts your immune system and it dampens inflammation. And some studies even say that it wards off cancer and heart disease. But where does the evidence really stack up? So if we look to the United Kingdom, I mean, that is a nation known to be tea drinkers. There was a study that tracked 500,000 tea drinkers over 11 years, and it showed that drinking 2 to 3 cups of black tea was associated with just a modest 9 to 13% lower risk of death. Higher tea consumption was also associated with a lower risk of death from cardiovascular disease, from heart disease, and from stroke. However, green tea, which is made from unfermented leaves, was also found to be even better because it is richer in those polyphenols, which act as a powerful antioxidant, and they also disarm and neutralize reactive chemicals known as free radicals, because free radicals are what destroys cells and DNA. So, based on the current evidence, black tea, which most English people drink, is not as healthy as coffee and doesn't have the same health benefits, especially on the heart. But if coffee isn't your thing, then a cup of tea is a great thing to do, but perhaps it should be green tea instead of just black tea, and that way you will have reap the benefits. Now, before I end, I just want to give a quick concern over the dangerously high caffeine content that led to the UK's Labour Party pledging to ban energy drinks for kids under 16. It proposed legislation to restrict their sale because energy drinks are particularly popular with young kids, and up to half of children worldwide drink them on a regular basis. And what they found in England was the combination of the caffeine and the sugar in these energy drinks make it especially hard for children to resist, and it has very risky consequences. When people overdose on caffeine, they present to emergency departments really agitated, excitable, and anxious. And the agitation can progress so far as to actually cause a seizure and heart palpitations. They feel like their heart is beating abnormally and too fast. And more problematic is that the products often contain other legal stimulants like guarana, taurine, and L-carnitine. And some of these act to further increase blood pressure, heart rate, and breathing rate. So the case studies in the report make for sobering reading with examples experiencing serious cardiac events after consuming energy drinks. So, while the scientific community is knowledgeable about the pharmacology and effects of caffeine, much less is known about the interactions among all these other ingredients and their long term effects that are with the chronic consumption of energy drinks. So, probably be really cautious with energy drinks and instead drink that coffee with the caffeine in it. And if you have kids, you might want to really manage the amount that they get because those fizzy caffeinated beverages could be very bad for your health. Well, you're listening to Cynthia Brian. This is Star Style. Be the star you are. We'll be back with a business bite, so stay with me. If you fear mistakes, you are bound to make them. Why? Because instead of playing to win, you're playing not to lose. Taking the safe path can lead you down the wrong path. If you're trying not to lose or not to make mistakes, you're going to come up short. This attitude becomes a crutch that will negatively affect your work approach. Change your mindset. Get your ideas down on paper. Make a checklist. Mistakes are the first steps to moving forward. There's no progress without mistakes. Just do it. Failure is success turned inside out. Remember, you're the star of your own performance. Turn your passions into profits. I'm Cynthia Brian with another business bite from Starstyle. For more information, visit cynthiabrian.com. That's Brian with an I.com. Well, we are back with our segment 3, and you are listening to Cynthia Brian on Star Style. Be the star you are. And of course, these catastrophic fires in Los Angeles have devastated thousands of structures and acres and killed more than 24 people. And then across the nation and the world, we've seen horrific hurricanes and floods and tornadoes and blizzards and storms and extreme weather everywhere around the United States. So we really need to be prepared for an emergency. I want to share with you how to pack an emergency go bag and get one ready in your car and have one in your house so that in the event of an emergency, you would be ready to go. About 6 years ago, around 2 in the morning, during a 5 day power outage in absolute freezing temperatures, when I was quite ill, my husband and I awoke to pounding on our front door. And if you've ever had your power out in the middle of the night and you're struggling to, grab a flashlight, find your way out, put a robe on and you got to go open the door. It is a little bit challenging. But before opening the door, I looked out the window and I could see lights flashing and towering flames near our fence line. When I opened the door, the firefighter who was knocking told me that we had to evacuate now. I asked him, "Well, how long do we have?" I mean, because I was just in my bathrobe. And he responded, "About 60 seconds if you want us to save your property." Wow, that was like a big gulp. That was really scary. Fortunately, I had practiced being ready for a disaster. Now, I have many family members in at our first responders. My dad was a volunteer firefighter, 45 years a captain in the farmland where we grew up. I have a son that's a fire captain, a son-in-law that's in the LA Fire Department, or I think they say Fire Department, Los Angeles, and brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, so many people that are all first responders. So I have been kind of ready, I suppose, my whole life. So I jumped into action. I immediately pulled on a pair of pants. I told my husband to grab his things, and I ran into my office. I grabbed my purse, my phone, my computer, my keys, went into the closet, and I grabbed that family go bag that I had packed. And I always have a go bag packed in the hall closet right by the front door. I already had a smaller go bag in my car, but in those few seconds, my husband was so disoriented. Again, we're woken up in the middle of the night in the pitch black, in the freezing weather. And he just had to jump in the car. He didn't have his keys. He didn't have his iPad. He didn't have phone. He didn't have glasses. He didn't have wallet because he didn't keep them all in one spot. He didn't know where they were in the house, and the house was pitch black. So as we ran out of the house, the one thing I realized I didn't have was shoes. But I did, I always keep my gardening clogs. So they're somewhere tucked under a bench in the front porch. So that's what I grabbed. I didn't have any socks. That was a mistake. And what we did is we evacuated to my Starstyle production studio, which was a few miles away. The power was also out there, but I was able to get us in and at least get us to a safe place. Now, this frightening evacuation experience taught me several important lessons. So, amid the many disasters that seem to be continuous, I am always encouraging others, and especially my clients, to put together what I call an emergency go bag. So, whatever the calamity, it's going to behoove you to have this emergency supply kit in every vehicle and a larger one in your home near your exit. And why I say have one in your vehicle is because if you are away from home when the emergency occurs, you will have supplies to get you through at least 3 days. Also, in the case that what we were in, even though we each have a car, what's interesting is the firefighters only let us take one car because that's just a one lane road getting out of where we live in this rural area, and they didn't want the lanes to be jammed because, this whole hillside was on fire. And interestingly, my husband, who I had packed a go bag, had taken his out of his car. But fortunately, I had my family one packed, and I threw that in the car, and we were only able to take one car. Now, on another note, you want to make sure you know where all your important documents are located. You want to upload whatever is possible to the cloud or a backup platform, and you need to have on that your passport, your driver's license, credit cards. Hard copies can be placed either in your go bag, next to your go bag, but you want to know how to manually open if you have garage doors or gates, because if the power is out, you're not going to be able to open these things. So you have to know how to manually open doors and gates. And sometimes, as is in the case with our California wildfires, and earthquakes, a matter of minutes is, or maybe even seconds, is the difference between life and death. So I suggest that you pack duplicate chargers for phones, tablets, and computers, and you might keep some cash in or near your go bag because in a disaster, power may be down and credit cards won't work. Keep your computers backed up, and as I said, keep files in the cloud or off site. You want to make a plan for your pets and animals, and then have a bag ready for them as well. Get to know your neighbors and their contact numbers to keep in touch to make sure everyone is safe. Interestingly enough, just 2 weeks before this fire had occurred, I had had neighbors over for a barbecue here at the house, and we had talked about the dangers of fires and what we would do. So we all had each other's numbers, we checked on each other, we made sure that everyone had evacuated, and that's a good sign. I also think that, speaking of signs, that you want to make a couple of placards or signs in advance and put them on top of your go bag in your home and have a roll of tape. And one sign needs to say evacuated, that you would tape that to your door. That will help fire personnel know that no one remains in the home and that you are evacuated. And the other one can say help, which tells first responders or others that you need assistance. So these are really important things. And then know where you're going to go in an evacuation. And if it is an office, make sure you have the keys. And most of all, remember that saving your life and that of your family is the most important thing, and everything else can be replaced. So you're probably wondering what to put in that go bag. Well, a couple things that I suggest that you have would be to have a crank radio. There's a very inexpensive ones that you can find on Amazon for less than $20 that also can charge your phone, because in case of something, you'll want to be in touch with the news to find out what's going on. So you want it to fill a backpack or maybe a roller bag or a small case with these items. You can put a smaller version of this go bag in your vehicles, but you definitely want to have a supply of water, food, and medications. And you really need a 3-day supply. And the medications are very important because you may not be able to reach a doctor or a pharmacy in order to get that. So a first aid kit, work gloves, warm gloves, towelettes, and a towel. You'd want bottled water, a gallon per person per day. Now, obviously, you probably can't keep a gallon per person per day in your car, but if you can have that nearby, if you could have it packed, so like, in your garage so that you could grab it and throw it in your car, that would be great. You want a warm blanket, walking shoes, socks, maybe a few pairs of socks, a warm jacket, and then food wise, you should have some either protein bars. Peanut butter and honey are great to have because they don't go bad. And a personal hygiene kit that should have your toothbrush, soap, and of course your medications. Eyeglasses if you wear them. Excuse me. Matches. I pack always a candle, a flashlight, and a headlamp with extra batteries. Now, that headlamp really comes in handy to put on your nightstand in case of a blackout, because trying to hold a flashlight while you're trying to gather your belongings is hard. But if you have that headlight on, you will have two hands. Eating utensils, a breathing mask, clothing change, extra set of keys to your office. That's a break for you. Okay, you'll have to pick that up after. Cash, toilet paper, and maybe you even want a bottle of wine. Another suggestion is to keep, if your power is out, that headlamp, as I said, by your bedside. so you won't have to hold the flashlight. Now, it was really cold, as I said, at the Starstyle production studios, but with all my go bag essentials, we were comfortable because we had blankets. The blaze burned the hills, it burned fences and backyards, but the heroic firefighters that night saved all the structures in our neighborhood. And it was later discovered that the fire was started by a vape pen that was tossed into the dry grass. We never know when or where a man-made or natural emergency will strike. But I hope that my family never has to use the emergency kits again, and I hope that you don't have to either. But it's best to be prepared, and now you know what it is that you need to do. So that is our show for this week. I hope that it has given you some important information. You can change your life. You can make your dreams come true. For more information about Starstyle Productions or to purchase any of my books, visit cynthiabrian.com. To get more information about the charity Be the Star You Are, visit bethestaryouare.org. My aim is always to encourage, inspire, inform, amuse, and motivate. See beyond your physical being. Know you are already the star you dreamed of becoming. Cherish the past, dream of the future, and celebrate every moment of your life. And read a book this week. It's like a garden in your pocket. And until we celebrate next week on the Starstyle Playground, remember that love always wins, kindness always prevails, and smiles will keep us happy. My name is Cynthia Brian for Starstyle. I thank you and encourage you to be your unapologetically authentic self. Be the star you are. Until next week.